Hi, everybody. I'm Pete Christensen,
I'm Coffee Brown.
and welcome to episode 45 of Don't
Don't
Die
Die
Dumb.
Dumb.
So I point the finger at you, it's very dramatic. We want to finish off on some topics we were talking about last time. One is diet. Okay, one of the things I'm trying to stay away from, is processed meats. I love a ham and Swiss. I won't lie about it. I like a cheeseburger. But I'm trying to stay away from those now. And let me correct this headroom. Not correct. There we go. What is a lunch you could have, or a sandwich you can have, something quick that you can take to work or wherever you're going, that isn't full of carcinogens?
I'm glad you mentioned the processed meats, by the way. I can't think of anything I'm aware of that is more carcinogenic, any food that I'm aware of that's more carcinogenic than processed meats. Carcinogenic means cancer-causing. So let me try that again in plain English. Processed meats are more likely to cause colon cancer than any other common food that I can think of. Although some expired foods, like moldy nuts, are also especially highly carcinogenic. All foods become more carcinogenic as they travel through the gut. And so one of the many reasons I keep recommending fiber is that it speeds the transit of food through the gut, and therefore it doesn't transform into as many carcinogens before you're done with it.
The answer to a healthy sandwich?
The answer to healthy, so one that I like is low-fat cheese, lettuce, and so you could use cream cheese, for example, sour cream perhaps on it, and on a whole grain bread, something like pumpernickel or Ezekiel bread would be a good, reasonable, healthy choice. And you can put lettuce on that too. Weirdly, pickles are actually apparently pretty good. Fermented foods.
Let me say this. That sounds kind of bland, but I usually put sliced olives, green olives,
Yeah, olives are great.
something to spice it up. Otherwise, mayo and mustard, which I don't think the mayo is good for you.
In fact, and for the love of God, don't max on this. But olive oil can help reverse some of the damage that unhealthy fats have been doing to your vascular system, which is important for heart health and brain health. So olive oil is actually good for you, but it doesn't mean that more is better. Okay? And almost never should you follow with more must be better. That's almost always a bad plan.
Are eggs really that bad for you?
Egg whites are the best source of protein you can get. The yolks of eggs are a little more confusing. The evidence is inconsistent about whether dietary cholesterol contributes meaningfully to your blood cholesterol. Your genetics probably matter more than your diet, and also it seems that some people will get more of a bump from dietary cholesterol than others do. So what they generally recommend is 1 or 2 eggs, I think, a day is reasonable for most people. If you're somebody who eats a lot of eggs, and I am because I don't eat meat, then I do avoid the yolks. But it's possible that that's an overreaction to 1970s era cholesterol thinking. The easiest thing would be to check in with your doc, and what you might do is, if your cholesterol is low, go ahead and eat eggs for a while and then get it rechecked and see if it changes. And if your cholesterol is high, then get rid of the egg yolks for a while and see if it drops. In other words, find out whether you personally are a responder or not to dietary cholesterol.
Dinner's our biggest meal of the day. Shouldn't breakfast be the biggest meal of the day?
Right. In a lot of countries, it is. In the Midwest and in farming areas, it tends to be the middle meal of the day. It's not hugely important how your calories are distributed during the day, but I would agree that getting most of your calories in the morning, when you need that glucose boost to do your work, makes more sense than at night, when there's not much your body can do with it except store it as fat. The logic of that makes sense, but in actual testing, total calories per day is really the most important thing. Generally speaking, though, I don't advocate calorie counting. I advocate eating healthy foods, exercising in the way that we talked about last episode, and using the mirror, not the scale, to guide you.
Isn't snacking during the day much healthier than actually having 3 meals?
It's so frustrating because nutrition advice, really expert people who have done really good work, debate each other a lot. The reasoning behind that, and reasoning that I have followed a lot, is that if you snack during the day, you don't get hungry and you don't get drops in glucose that make you then overeat candy bars and stuff and get a big bounce high in the glucose, with then followed by a big drop down that makes you get hypoglycemic, and so you eat another high sugar snack again. This pattern, this yo-yo pattern, is strongly associated with developing type 2 diabetes. With all drugs, and glucose is a drug in a sense, what you want is the minimum amount of variation between the peak and the trough. And so the argument for snacking throughout the day is that you get a relatively constant glucose level and you don't wind up with insulin spikes that train your body to be unresponsive to insulin. So in plain English, type 2 diabetes, the one you get from the American lifestyle and from being overweight, one of the ways to reduce your chance of getting it is to have a flatter glucose curve during the day by eating smaller, more frequent amounts. But the total calories during the day still matter.
Now, I have a sleep pattern 11:30 at night till 7 in the morning. A lot of people can't do that because they have to get up earlier for work. I get that. But I always get hungry around 10 o'clock. I don't eat a big dinner, a sandwich or something is about it. But I think if you can find a healthy snack and if you can afford it, you know, a lot of health food is so expensive. And don't think it has to be a celery stalk or something. There are all kinds of health bars and stuff. There's one called, I believe, Climb, and I'm probably mispronouncing that, but that supposedly, I did an article on it years ago, is one of the more healthier ones you can get. What's a healthy snack that isn't just let's have some vegetables, you know?
Well, scrambled eggs would be a good choice. A high protein, low carb snack would be ideal for late at night, and you can pair it with fruits or vegetables, both to make it more appealing and also to get that fiber and stuff without a big carbohydrate load. What you don't want is the ultra processed foods most of us think of for a snack before we go to bed. Is popcorn isn't ultra processed. It's actually a whole grain, but it can be a lot of calories, especially if you put butter and stuff on it. Crackers and cookies and things like that, though, are going to go straight to your abdomen.
So if you could learn to enjoy a veggie omelet without cheese and without sour cream and avocado, well, you
I'm
can put
tempted
the
right
avocado.
now.
If you can learn to like a veggie omelet, put it in the fridge, pull it out, throw it in the microwave for a minute, that might be something you could make ahead of time and have for a late night snack.
Yeah.
And
On
that
the
wouldn't
other
be
hand, they're so
detrimental?
quick to make, you could make it right when you want it. Yeah, no, that'd be healthy. So a veggie omelet would be an ideal before bed snack. And part of the reason is that protein is more satiating. It makes you feel fuller longer than carbohydrates do. And it doesn't lead to that insulin crash afterward. So if what you want is a late night snack so you won't wake up hungry in the middle of the night, protein is a much better choice than carbohydrates.
Okay, I want to switch gears and talk about something I found out that is disturbing. There's an epidemic of suicide in this nation. Are people feeling helpless? Are they feeling like there's no light at the end of the tunnel? Or are they so guilty of things they've done that they're giving up? Do you have any idea on this? I mean, I know now you...
No, it's a great legitimate question.
Yeah.
Nor do I think suicide is funny. What I think is funny is that Americans have an incredible lifestyle by any historic or international standard. But all we can do is kvetch all the time about how terrible our economy is and how terrible things are. Gas is so expensive. It's like half here what it is in Europe. And eggs are so expensive. We have eggs all the time. And produce is so expensive. We have fruit year round. And by the way, it would be less expensive if we hadn't thrown out all the people who pick the fruits and vegetables. So the fact is, even poor Americans live better than King Arthur or a pharaoh or Cleopatra or Solomon or the Persian princes ever lived. But all we can think about is that I should have more. We talked last episode about the importance of understanding when you have enough. We're fat because we have too much food. We're soft because we have too much comfort. We do not need better stuff. We need better people.
Well, I beg to differ with you on part of this. Telling people, well, gas isn't expensive here because in Europe it's more. We produce more oil than any other nation in the world, but we're not selling it here because they can get more for it.
Because we can get more for it elsewhere, yeah. And then we import oil. We export and import at the same time, which seems weird to me. But we should be getting away from oil completely.
Yeah.
Part of the argument over the last several years has been, well, we need those fossil fuel jobs. Fossil fuel jobs are smaller in number than alternative energy jobs. They pay less. They're not as good jobs. And if you think you're miserable now, wait till climate change forces massive migrations and drives the food belt up north into Canada, so you're buying all your food from Canada, who will still be pissed off about the tariffs. Maybe a little sanity might help us out here.
But let's get back to the topic of an epidemic of suicide. The highest rate of suicide in not only the nation but the world are young Native American men between the ages of 16, I believe 25. Most of them, they can't see any light at the end of the tunnel. A lot of the reservation life is so filled with poverty, and that causes desperation and then crime and a lot of addiction. I would think, one of the places that is consistently considered one of the worst places in the world to live is, I won't name the reservation in South Dakota. We should be ashamed of this. We have so much money that we could help them. And I've always thought ESPN, they have ESPN Ocho, 8 networks of sports in which they have things like beanbag toss. Why not start a lacrosse network, Native American Lacrosse League, and build some stadiums for them and sell this? This is a product waiting. If you ever watch lacrosse, it's like soccer but really violent. People should love it. Americans. But now they wear helmets, so it helps a lot, Why can't we help these people? And don't kid yourself. One of the reasons we've never helped them is because they had the backbone to say, we're going to be a sovereign nation. Now in Canada, they took an entire province, Tuktoyaktuk, and they said, we're giving it back to the Native Americans. And all the conservatives in Canada said, we can't do that. They can't govern themselves. They've never, this won't work. They have no industry. They're really doing frickin' great up there. A lot of white people resent them, and the government resents them because they stayed sovereign. They said, no, we don't need you to help us. I had a ticket on the res, right? And when we were in court, I'm going to pay my fine. I said, is there any way you can keep this from getting points off my license? And they all started laughing. I said, what's so funny? The judge goes, we don't care what you white guys do. Pay the fine and get out of here, will you? We caught you, you're guilty, it's over,
Just do it.
But my point is, shouldn't we be helping them?
There's a line in Finnegan's Rainbow, that's a musical, where a senator says to a Native American, I just think you guys should all go back where you came from. It's meant to be a humorous throwaway line. But lately, apparently a number of Native Americans have been getting that from maggots. Why don't you guys go back where they came from? And, they're thinking, yeah, I'd love to, man. If you're going to call yourself an originalist, America should go back to its original settlers. Then you should deport yourself to Europe and give this land back to Native Americans.
Now, I don't believe in reparations. The main reason is because it would never end. Okay, we should, if we're going to give reparations to the African Americans who were slaves, we better give them to the Native Americans who we systematically almost drove extinct, and some Native American tribes are now going extinct, believe it or not.
Yeah, some of them have been wiped out.
And if we're going to do that, we better give reparations to, and we did partially, to the internment camps of the Japanese. If we're going to do that, we better give it to the Chinese that built the railroad across the nation, and then we killed a lot of them rather than pay them. And if we're going to do that, we better give it to the Irish immigrants who were caught in indentured slavery. This would never end. I don't believe in reparations, but I do believe that the best thing you can do for any country is to educate its people. If we could take the miners and give them jobs in IT, we import 19,000 people from India every year to get 2-year visas to work as IT techs. Wouldn't you rather get these guys out of the coal mines and let them work in clean, fresh air? So my point is, can't we build some ways for Native Americans to help themselves?
Right. So
I said
I
a lot
think-
there.
Right, which is great, and it was pretty dense stuff. The moral case for reparations is pretty hard to argue with, but the practical case against it is also pretty hard to argue with. I wish I knew how to make up for past harms. Well, actually, we do know how. We'll just lie about it. We'll just say, when slaves were brought here, they got a free trip across the ocean, and they learned many valuable skills, and many of them were treated affectionately, like pets.
Yeah.
Right? So one of the things we can do is just retcon history, and then we don't have to feel bad about it anymore. The reparations we made to the American Japanese families whose stuff was taken away and who were, interned and so forth, was token. It didn't really improve their lives or the lives of their descendants, but it made the white people feel better.
Yeah.
So it made us feel better. And yeah, sure, we could give every person of color in America or every Native American $250, and then you and I could feel good, high five each other, and walk away, and nothing would have really been accomplished. I think instead, I'm not making a moral case here, just in terms of problem solving. You can't change the past. You can only change the future. And I think we should focus, I would like it to be our national policy that we want to create an economy in which as many people as possible can participate as fully as possible. And I'll go a step further. This might be controversial. By the way, I'm hoping we get letters from you guys that critique or comment or correct. This is a tough area to work through. And I don't have the final answers. So please write in and say, I wish you would have said this, or I thought that. And tell us what you think about this topic, because it's kind of an important one. But as a national policy, 2 things we could really do for ourselves. 3, and now that I think of it. One is to do what I think it was Myanmar that had a national happiness index rather than a gross domestic product as a way of measuring the success of their government. We know enough now that we could actually implement something like that. The well-being of the people should be the role of the government, not merely growing the GDP. Since about 1970, almost all of the growth of the GDP has gone to the upper 1%. So growth in GDP does not translate to economic health. Most places in the world have an index, have a gap between the lowest paid person and the highest paid person in a company, somewhere between 10 and 20. In the US, 10,000 is not unusual. So one of the things I would say is we need to raise the bottom end of the income. We need to flatten the spread of the income. I didn't say make it flat, which is how I'm going to get interpreted. Flatten relative to now. Right now we have an income curve that looks like this. It should look more like that. Okay, it should rise, but it should rise in a fairly linear way and not with such a steep slope if what you want is maximum social stability, which is what conservatives claim they do want. And if you're going to be a conservative and say, I believe in tradition, we should have a wealth gap that's more consistent with tradition. And by the way, it was once a traditional conservative value to grow the middle class by shrinking the poor and the super rich class. We've been doing the exact opposite for more than 60 years now. We've been hollowing out the middle class, and the poor class has been growing faster than the wealthy class. Obviously, that leads to social instability. Right now, we have the deepest divide in the country we've had since the Civil War, and it's largely driven by people who use the word patriot as if they understood it. Your country isn't stronger when it turns on itself. The reason that Russia and China helped Trump get elected, and the reason that they're now helping Iran fight the U.S., is because they want the U.S. to founder as a world power. And they succeeded. We will never be trusted again as a world power because everybody will know we're one election away from the next Trump. So what we should do is stop shooting ourselves in the foot and save those bullets for our enemies.
Our enemies have used the most basic form of warfare, divide and conquer.
Propaganda, yeah.
And we're falling for it,
And we're worried about we're spending all this time and energy on school bathrooms when we have climate change and unsustainability, ecological unsustainability, that we should be looking at. We have actually, literally existential crises to solve this century. And instead we're like, yeah, but men wearing dresses? We can't have that. Like, that is nothing on the scale of what's important.
Now, I recently said online, I posted that one of the best things we can do for people is make sure everybody has a living wage, as you often said, not minimum wage, but living wage. And I got comments like, yeah, you're an idiot. You think paper boys should make the same as executives. And you think everybody wants a handout. No, I don't. But I don't think we should be ashamed of the term the working poor. You work 40 hours and you can't afford medicine?
Those tent cities in San Francisco, 90% of the people in those tent cities have full-time jobs.
Yeah.
But the wages don't keep up with rent.
I don't think these are hard problems to solve. It's just that we have an upper class, and this is a recipe for revolution, and nobody wins in revolution. We did at one time, but it was a long, hard battle in our revolution and took years and years to get out of.
It's also the exact reason we had a revolution.
Yeah.
So I said moments ago, I referred to flattening the wage curve, and I said it's going to get spun as a flat wage curve, which is not what I said. And that's exactly what the comments that Pete just mentioned have accused us of. No, we're not saying a paper boy should make what an executive makes. We are saying that the bottom worker in a company should make at least 1/20th of what the top guy makes. And that way the top guy can't get a raise, or girl, unless they raise the bottom. All of the people in a company work together to make that company profitable. But we have this idea that it's okay for all of the profits to go to only a few at the very top. That is wrong, and it's socially unsustainable, and it's the reason Americans feel so bitter. We don't feel bitter because we don't have enough. Almost the poorest person you know has an iPhone. We feel bitter because we don't have as much as the people we see around us. And that's actually just the 1%, but it's so big and ostentatious, right? Elon Musk gets $1 trillion, right? What you're making isn't even a rounding error on his wage. That's too big of a gap. The antidote for that is not that everybody has the same, it's that the gap isn't so wildly exaggerated.
Let me say this. I truly believe that Elon Musk has mental problems. I want you to look into his past and some of the things he said and understand. I think he has no moral compass, or very little moral compass. I really don't think he may be a sociopath. And I do think, and I'll say this, I think he's probably a racist. Sue me
He
if you
pretty
want.
clearly
We'll find
is
out.
if he's claiming there's a race war in South Africa,
Mm-hmm.
where other journalists are not, they're just not able to find evidence of that.
No, we've gotten carried away and gotten off the subject.
Yeah.
The epidemic of suicide. I don't have the stats that tell you, is it more men, more women? Is it upper class, middle class, lower class? But what could be causing this? Why are people losing hope? And understand this. I'm going to say a very controversial thing. If you have clinical depression and you suffered all your life, a guy told me, he said, I've wanted to give up all my life. I hate my life. I just want to end it. Why do you stop me from doing that? And I couldn't come up with a good answer. But suicide is such a sad thing. This person has a house, and a tornado comes by and it rips it up, and they put the shutters on, they fix the windows. Then a flood comes by and they drain the basement and they fix it. And one day they say, I'm going to blow up the house. I'm going to blow it up. Can you imagine how sad that is? What is bringing this on? What do you think? And this is purely opinion. I'm not asking for expert advice here, but
I mean, Native Americans have led suicide rates for forever, for a long, long time, since before I trained in medicine. What's interesting is that the demographic in which suicide rates have been rising the fastest over the last couple of decades is urban white males. Maggots, actually. Some of it clearly is related to alcohol. It's a subculture apparently that drinks a lot. Native Americans have the same problem, but that was done to them. Native Americans were sold alcohol cheaply and often given alcohol back when we were still taking land from them.
to control them.
Specifically to control them, to cripple them. And it worked. Why rural white males drink more than others, I think, is just a cultural
Well,
phenomenon.
this is part of the rural myth. I drive a truck, I drink, I go out on, what is he? I want a big, strong man with some big, rough hands, who's got an old Trans Am in the driveway. He's a real good lover, just like no other, and he takes me to town on Fridays. The hell? There's this myth that you got to be a hard drinking, hard charging guy.
So, once upon a time, I did graphic art. And in graphic art, in the creative arts in general, and then later, when I was involved with making videos, independent videos for a while, both of those subcultures pushed back hard on me, but I'm going to make a pitch, and you're welcome to disagree with it. Lots of people do. But I'm going to say that an artist isn't just... You're not an artist if you just provoke a reaction from people. You're an artist if you take some kind of responsibility for the nature of that reaction. And where I'm going with that is, I like action movies as much as the next person does. But an awful lot of the culture of the American film industry is you solve every problem by punching somebody, and you solve every bad mood by drinking heavily. All of our white male, alpha male heroes in TV and movies, whenever they're in a bad mood, they reach for a bottle of whiskey, and whenever they have a problem to solve, they shoot or punch somebody. And these can be cathartic fantasies, releases, but the problem is we're getting worse and worse and worse at distinguishing between fantasy and reality. The same thing happens apparently in the porn industry. The kinds of things people watch online are behaviors you can't and shouldn't do in real life, but young males, and young females for example as well, watching porn, think, oh, that's how sex works. No, it's not. It's the fantasy world. You know what? When you watch The Wizard of Oz, people can't really fly around on broomsticks either. And a tangible way this plays out is, I guess, a thing that people see a lot is choking during
Oh,
intercourse.
jeez.
Or choking themselves or their partner. And as a physician, I'm telling you right now, one episode of that can and does not rarely, lead to permanent brain damage. I know people in their 20s who have suffered strokes from exactly those mechanisms. David Carradine, whom I loved in Kung Fu, the TV series, and he was all right in a bunch of great B movies after that, died this way. It's a humiliating and sad way to die.
Yeah, it is.
And young males, teenagers, have killed themselves this way in their bedroom. The meme that choking somehow improves sex is A, stupid, and B, very likely to get you killed or crippled for your whole life. Now, I'm using that as an example of really terrible, terrible things that happen when we fail to differentiate fantasy from reality. Arnold Schwarzenegger made his living and spent hundreds of $1,000s on supplements and vast amounts of calories and equipment and so forth and self-promotion, becoming this, muscular guy that, you want to look like him and be in the movies and stuff. That is a fantasy. You would have to make it your full-time profession like he does. It's not advice that influencers should be peddling on YouTube. Oh, go out and do steroids and eat 5,000 calories a day. That's terrible advice. And by the way, bodybuilders do not age well at all. So grow up. If you want to be a real man, think in terms of what you contribute, what you produce, how you support the people around you. How reliable are you? Can I trust your word? Are you good at your job? And forget this bullshit about cosmetic muscles and pounding your cheeks with a hammer and using steroids and all kinds of enhancers. You're trying to turn yourself into a Ken doll.
Okay, now we've run over, so we got to wrap it up. But I want to say 3 things. Number 1, if you are feeling depressed, if you're feeling dark, call the suicide hotline. Find a place where you can be alone to call them so that you can give your thoughts without outside influence. You don't want someone saying, hang up, I'll help you. No, call them. If you're drinking too much, and if you are, Number 1, go to a meeting. I'm telling you, whether you like them or not, the fellowship can help you. And if you can also seek help through your church or a real good friend that you can trust. And the third thing is, if you're drinking too much, I found myself drinking too much. So what I did was, I said, I'm going to take the first step and not drink when I go out. So I'd go to a bar, I wouldn't drink. And you know what happened? People came up to me and said, I'm proud of you, Pete. You were here all night, you ever had a drink? I said, I don't want one. And maybe I did have a drink when I got home, but you'll be shocked the reaction of how people admire you for that. Anyhow, that's our show for this week. Thank you for watching. Hope I didn't depress you. And we'll see you next time. Until that time, remember, don't die dumb.